I just wanted to start with a couple remarks about why we did the survey and what it will be building towards. Are you familiar with the 5-year educational master plan that the district has been embarking on for about a year now? Okay, the fact that there's some shaking heads is a pretty good sign that everyone is aware that there's been a pretty significant conversation going forward at the district around the present and future use of our educational programs as well as our facilities. Dr. McDonald, our school superintendent, identified the educational master plan as a top priority for his vision moving the district forward. And there's a couple handouts that you can refer to related to the master plan. They're in English and Spanish, available for you today. There's also a handout on the key findings available for you. I will reference things, and certainly our presenter will too, that are also on our website. So please keep handy pusd.us, because you'll be able to follow this effort around survey findings, the master plan, and some of the other resources that we'll briefly share that help build into the process. The goal of this effort, in terms of what the superintendent is continuing to look at and seek, is to bring better use and alignment together of our resources across the district to ensure academic success of our young people and community and parent engagement within the school district. We have faced many challenges over the years, specifically around declining enrollment, and we wanted to better understand the contributing factors to the declining enrollment as we were beginning to embark on the master plan effort. And the master plan effort really is going to tie into 2 plans. It's the educational plan first, so that instruction drives construction. What types of programs are families interested in partaking in, and young people? What are important programs and services that need to be considered? And how do we better understand the choices that you as a parent are faced with when making a decision about where to put your young person in school? And that begins in our preschool, and then certainly our kindergarten, and then all the way through to 12th grade. In more recent past, we hadn't had a real clear design on our K through 12 pathway. We've introduced many new signature programs with resounding success, dual language programs, our science and STEM programs, and our international baccalaureate, just to name a few. But when a family starts out in PUSD, they often question, if I start here, where will I end? And there's great anxiety over the school choice program in terms of the participation in the lottery process, and that we understand is an area that we need to continue to work on and improve, as well as we look at the kinds of programs and services that we're offering here in PUSD. So what's the good news? What's the takeaway? Well, we're beginning to work as part of the master plan process, and I know one of our core team members, Jeff Albert, is here, has been involved in this work for the last year, and looking at the signature K through 12 program alignment. So if you start in a dual language program at one school, where are you going for middle, and then where are you going for high school? That's a huge, important piece for you in terms of how you're making a decision on education. And that's an example of why this process was so important for us in responding to the interests and the needs of the community. But as many of you may know, we have been in a state of declining enrollment. And we conduct a report annually. It's a Davis demographic report. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it is also up on our website. We redesigned it this past year because we had deeper questions about, just beyond school choice and parents, what are the other factors in the communities that we serve that are contributing? And certainly the decline in birth rate is still a reality for us here in California. The different types of housing that's being built is a consideration. And the communities that we serve and beyond are aging in place. And so we're seeing a lot of different factors converge that we also have to consider. So looking at our demographic landscape and all these factors are all parts of how we can better understand our work going forward. We looked at a problem of, since 2011 to 2014-15, we declined by 1,100 students. And that's quite a bit of students. So if we're looking at doing a facilities master plan, we need to look at our enrollment and the choices people are making as to why they're staying or leaving, and the other demographic trends that we need to be concerned with. This academic year, 15-16, was the first year that we were flat. We didn't decline from year over. We're really proud of that. There were a lot of different reasons why that occurred. We saw that there were new signature programs that had been brought online. So we were introducing new children and spaces in our classroom that were very popular and that people liked. We also saw some trends with inter-district transfer students coming into PUSD for some of our unique programs. Jackson, dual language, and STEM program is a great example. Last year there was over 100 students, new students that enrolled in that school site. And that's a sign that we're developing programs that are interesting for our own community members as well as members from outside our community that are interested in taking part in PUSD. So the data and the analysis of the data is really important to us as we look at all of the factors and consider the feedback that we got via the survey as well. I also think what's really important for PUSD, and one of the things the superintendent is really concerned with, is that we're listening and that we're open and receptive to areas that maybe other people would feel too vulnerable dealing with. The only way that we can become a better district is by hearing the feedback and responding to the feedback in meaningful ways, and by collaborating and being responsive to and accountable to the findings. So Paul's going to talk just in a minute here about those findings, but I wanted to give you also some insight into what you will hear tonight. Certainly there are 3 leading areas that we learned more about in the survey around what influences choice for families and their educational options. And as you also probably know, there's about 54 educational opportunities other than Pasadena Public Schools in our service area. And you can refer to the Davis Demographic Report and see the different educational options that are here within our service area that we have coexisted with for many years, and we will continue certainly to coexist and work in collaboration in terms of all the unique offerings that are available here in PUSD. The findings highlight academic rigor, school safety, and responsiveness. We're going to want to talk to you a little bit more about the responsiveness piece and the welcoming piece as we come to the close of our meeting today. Some immediate steps we've taken, though, in reading the survey results are that the direction was made between the school superintendent and the board to go ahead and bring on an ombuds officer to help families navigate PUSD and to help improve systems within PUSD so that families can address their needs and concerns more efficiently and effectively and in a caring, safe, anonymous manner, as well as looking at the K through 12 pathway and beginning to address that. So as we look to the future in designing facilities, it considers the programs that are at the facilities. So this is the sort of tedious part, the background, the context, but we certainly wanted to create some background information on sort of the problem that we were really, or the complex set of problems we were looking to solve, and to get some clear direction as we move forward. So what we're going to talk about today, I've already provided the purpose of the survey. Paul Goodwin, I'm going to introduce in just a moment, is our researcher. He's going to talk about the findings. There'll be some group interaction, closing thoughts, and next steps. And because towards the end, you probably have other things that you're looking forward to doing tonight, you may rush or jet out of here. I want to let you know that there's some other steps to our process concerning the master plan and work effort that's underway. There will be a community meeting coming up likely in early August around, and certainly if you've signed in, I will be sure to email you and notify you of that meeting, where we will discuss the master plan and the recommendations that have been highlighted in the master plan. We want to do this before it goes to the Board of Education. The information you're sharing tonight will also be part of sort of an addendum to the work effort, so that your feedback and your comments will be shared back with the board as well as they consider the larger process. Okay? Great. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce Paul Goodwin with Goodwin Simon Strategic Research. His office is located in Los Angeles and Oakland. Paul's an incredible resource. He has 25 years of experience conducting this type of work with public agencies, nonprofit groups, ballot measures, and political candidates. He has experience. His experience in the educational arena includes research on year-round schools, overcrowding, school discipline, modernization, recruiting of minority students onto college or into college programs, charter schools, bilingual education. He comes with a really diverse background, working in many communities that we were able to benefit quite significantly from here at PUSD. So I'm going to stop talking and go ahead and turn it over to Paul so that he can walk us through the survey findings.
Well, thank you, Mercy. So it's really a pleasure to be here tonight. The one thing that Mercy didn't mention that's most important to me is I'm also a public school parent. I have two boys in LA Unified schools, one a traditional school, one a charter. So I actually have some personal experience on both sides of that issue. So I want to thank the survey committee, Educational Master Plan Survey Advisory Group, for your help in this, all of the staff who helped in this process, the headmasters, the principals of the preschools, the private schools, the charter schools, who helped us contact their parents and get their input. And of course, I want to thank all the parents who participated in this. Apparently many of you in this room. We really appreciate it. We know that all of you had other things to do besides spend 10 minutes or so doing this survey, and we appreciate that you did. So, not only compared to LA Unified and other districts, what you guys have in common is that, like many districts, you're competing with these many other institutions. Pasadena, the area is unique in that you have just so many other schools that are right here locally, many of which are super high quality. It's a tough level of competition. And so, the question of how you react to this competition gets back to what I was saying earlier about the difference between you and other districts. The district is actually interested in learning, in collaboration, in improvement rather than confrontation. And to me, this is extremely exciting. So our goals in the study were to learn really four major things. How do parents feel about the district? Current parents. And by the way, the news is really, really awesome. Most current parents, as you're about to see, have incredibly positive feelings about their school choices. What were they looking for when they chose the PUSD? And for non-PUSD parents, what were they looking for when they chose their schools? What has been driving parents away from the PUSD? Now you might say, well, this is obvious, we can all name these things, but to actually see it and see how consistent the numbers are across the different types of parents we interviewed, I think is not only interesting, but valuable. And then finally, how do parents react to different steps that the district could take to retain current parents or bring back new parents? And you're going to see this is very consistent across current parents when we ask them what would help encourage you to stay for middle and high school, private and charter school parents, very consistent in their responses to what they're looking for. So when you think about that your current parents, your former parents, and your never parents who have never been here, are all interested in the same thing, that's kind of interesting and encouraging, it seems to me. Now, we have a lot of data. I'm not going to dump all this data on you. I'm just going to pick out some of the high points and share them with you for the next maybe 10 or 15 minutes. First, about methodology. Okay, you probably can't read that unless you have incredible vision, but we started with talking with the Survey Advisory Committee, with staff. We did we had a lot of input from the Parent Education Network, which did an incredible survey a couple years back. We did some focus groups. We did one in Spanish, one in English, and we heard a lot of, heart-wrenching, very challenging stories that people had to say about some of the concerns that they had. And that helped really inform the questions that we asked. It's difficult because there's an hour and a half worth of questions, but you don't want to burden, I didn't want to burden you with all these questions, so we had to kind of narrow it down to the things we thought would be most interesting and useful. So we did 5 surveys. We did a survey of current parents. We got an amazing response. So we got 1,865 responses to that. We did a survey of former parents. This is from a list provided to us by the district. And we got 265 responses, which is pretty good when you think about it. I mean, these are people that left for a reason, and now we're bothering them, for this sort of information. So I thought that was pretty good. We had 493 responses from parents at some private and charter schools in the area. We only had 65 responses from preschool parents, so that one was a little bit disappointing in terms of response rate. But then we did a web-based survey, basically open to everybody, and we got another 684 responses. I'm not going to talk much about the web-based survey because it was very similar in the results to the other ones. And I'm going to touch very briefly on the preschool and the private charter survey. I'm going to focus mostly on the current and former parent survey because I think that's where most of the meat is here. Next slide, Hilda. Well, you won't be able to see this either, but I wanted to just share with you the demographics of the responses. So the current parent survey is actually pretty close to, mind the way? Your way, okay. It's pretty close to the actual demographics of the current parent population. The former parent survey was low on ELL, which is not surprising. I mean, we did do these. It was available in Spanish and in English. But it's still a pretty diverse set of responses in terms of demographics. Okay, so let's go and look at some results. I want to start with some really, really awesome good news.
Can you explain how those numbers worked? The previous slide.
So the yellow, if you can read this, is the proportion of each of these groups in the list that was provided to us. So for example, in the list of current parents, 55% were free and reduced lunch. That is to say, there was a flag in their record that said this child, one of their children, is eligible for free and reduced lunch. In our results that we presented after a relatively small amount of what's called weighting, we have 50% are free and reduced lunch. So that's what that means.
So it doesn't add up, though, am I reading?
No, it doesn't add up. These are not, these are separate categories. Does not add up to 100. So let me summarize some of these hard to read slides here. The bottom line is when we ask current parents how they feel about the district, we got, in particular with their current school, we said, are you satisfied or not satisfied with the current school your child attends? 88% were satisfied. 52% very satisfied. That is unusual. That is extraordinary. That's Disneyland-like numbers, right? Were you satisfied with your visit to Disneyland? When you ask people how they feel about a public institution, you very rarely see numbers like this. So if you are part of the family of Pasadena Unified School District, you should feel very good about yourself. Now, We then asked those, we knew what grade you have a child in because it's recorded there in the file. So for those who had children in elementary school, we said, well, are you satisfied with your elementary school choices? 81% of elementary school parents were satisfied with their elementary school choice. So the next thing, as you would imagine, is we asked parents approaching middle school how satisfied they were with their middle school choices. And we all know this is a very challenging experience to be a 4th or 5th grade parent and being looking ahead to middle school. And in fact, we know that there is some attrition at that level. But we had 65% of grade 4 and 5 parents who were satisfied with their middle school choices, 19% dissatisfied. So this is about 3 to 1 of satisfied to dissatisfied. That doesn't mean that the 19% who are dissatisfied don't have real issues, but that's a pretty good aggregate number. Yes, sir?
When you say the word choice, do you mean choices made or choices available?
Available, yeah. We then asked those in grade 6 and 8, with children in grade 6 and 8, how they felt about their high school choices. 65% of those parents were satisfied with their high school choices, 13% dissatisfied. So this does not mean that individuals, perhaps you in this room, do not have issues and concerns, real issues and concerns. But what it does say is that in the aggregate, there's a lot of very satisfied parents. 88% of parents satisfied with their current school. That's more than almost an 8-to-1 ratio of satisfied to dissatisfied. Next slide, Hilda. We asked parents to rate specific aspects of the district, of their experience at the district. So quality, the highest ratings were for the quality of teachers and principals, which makes sense. Not only does it make sense that it's very positive, but also because this is what parents have the most experience with. I know myself, if you asked me to rate lots of aspects of LA Unified, I'd have a hard time. But I know the teachers, and I have warm feelings for my kids' teachers. And this is what we see here: 57 positive rating, 16% negative rating. Communicating with parents, and I know you communication staff are here. This is very positive. Making sure schools are safe, 56% positive, 16% negative. Again, this doesn't mean that there are not issues and concerns that parents have in this area. But overall, we're seeing very strong net positive ratings for this.
What is the margin of error for these? I mean,
Well, we can't really talk about margin of error in something like this because it's not a sample. This is everyone was eligible to participate. So those rules of statistical analysis don't really apply here.
quantitatively based score.
What's that?
It's a quantitatively based score. Why couldn't you?
Well, because the rules of statistical significance are associated with random sampling, and these were not random samples. So we sent out an invitation to everyone to participate. So if you did want to apply that, we had a very, very large number of responses, so it would be a small margin of error. But typically, we would not apply those margins of errors to this kind of analysis. Meeting the needs of children like yours, 51% positive, 20% negative. Academic standards, 48 positive, 22 negative. Being responsive to parents, 46, 26. And facilities, a lower positive and a slightly higher negative response, but also a lot of parents didn't know how to rate, didn't know how to answer this. That was the one where we got the most not sures. So highest levels of satisfaction for the quality of teachers and principals, communication, safety, and sort of meeting the needs of your children and academics were, these are all, it's a fairly narrow range. So if you look at the next slide, what were the parents looking for when they decided to enroll in a PUSD school? Safety, 72% said it was extremely important to them, how safe the school felt. The quality of teachers and principals, 69%. Academic standards, 69%. A welcoming and caring environment at the school, 61%. And by the way, when we, I'm not going to share all these numbers with you because it would take all night, but the preschool parents, that was very, very important to them. And you might think back to your, when your kids were in preschool and you were looking ahead to kindergarten, what could you actually get your hands on? It was, did it feel welcoming? And what were the teachers like, right? That was at least my experience, and that was reflected in the survey of preschool parents. The point I want to make here is that these items that are very important in deciding to enroll in the PUSD were also, most of them were highly rated by parents. So you have this confluence, and that's what's keeping people at the PUSD. So, you could say the parents found what they were looking for. Many PUSD parents found what they were looking for. So, great news, but of course the district is facing declining enrollment. As we talked about earlier, a lot of competition from some really great private schools, public schools in other districts, charters, et cetera. So let's take a look at the former parents who decided to leave the PUSD, and what did we learn about them? So the first thing to note is that a lot of them went to other districts. Now, I should add that we screened out anybody who said, I'm a former parent and I left because I got a job in another city, or we bought a house somewhere. They had to stay in the survey, they had to have left at least in part because of schools, because they wanted a different or better school for their kid. So that eliminated a lot of former parents, by the way. So where did they go? So 43% of the ones that completed the survey went to another public school district. And probably you all know people who have done this. About 36% went to a private or independent school. 14% went to a parochial school. Only 11% went to a charter. Now, why did they leave? Hilda, next slide, please. So this crazy chart here on the left are the proportions who rated each of these items as extremely important to them in deciding to leave. Number one, 73% academic quality, concerns about academic quality. And we heard in the focus groups and in the verbatim comments to the survey, we heard a lot of stories about our kids slipped through the cracks academically. Their kids were bored. They couldn't find an academic program or a teacher that was right for their children. So there was a lot of written comments, in particular, about this issue. Now, how did former parents rate the district in this area? So you can see the orangey, whatever color that is, top bar in the chart on the right are the negative ratings, that is a fair or poor rate, only fair or poor rating for the district, and look at high academic standards. So 60% of the former parents rated the district fair or poor in academic standards. Compare that to current parents in yellow, only 22% rated the district negatively. So 3 times as many former parents gave the district a negative rating in this area. The number 2 reason for rating for leaving the district was concerns about safety and student behavior. 64% said this was extremely important to them. These are former parents. Well, if you look on the right, you'll see 59% rated the district as negatively for making sure schools are safe. 59% of former parents, but only 16% of current parents. So, there's a really, really remarkable difference. Yes, ma'am.
Do we know how long the former parents have been out of the district? Do we have any measure of when they left?
I can tell you that nobody had been gone more than 5 years. So most of them were in the last couple years, but we went back like 4 or 5 years. The third highest rated item was class sizes were too big. And I don't have a rating of that. But the fourth was school not responsive to my child's needs. 45% said this was extremely important to them. And 57% of former parents rated the district negatively for this. So here at the bottom, less important to parents was the problem with teachers and principals, although we certainly had examples of that in the open-ended responses, and not a welcoming or caring environment. But so look, what's really driving this? You can see, I mean, it's complicated to look at these two charts, but if you spend a minute looking at them, you can really see what's driving this. Academic quality, safety and student behavior, class sizes, and responsiveness are really the big items here. And the ones where other than class sizes, you can see they all get pretty negative ratings from these former parents. So, you know, it's not that these are one or the other, right? That the district needs to address one of these problems and can ignore the others. It strikes me that we see consistently that, and in fact, let's see the next slide here. When we ask these former parents, what's the single most important factor in your deciding to leave, 47% had concerns about academic quality, 30% said concerns about student discipline, 16% said a problem with a particular teacher or principal. But you can't obviously fix people's concerns about academic quality without ensuring that they feel comfortable with the safety of their children in the school. These go hand in hand. And I think at the heart of this, for me, is responsiveness. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But you know, what they're saying is that concern about safety, academics, class size, responsiveness to my child's needs. What did that mean?
Oh, just bigger. If we do
Oh.
that slide. That's okay.
Okay. These and quality of teachers and principals are instrumental, are critical to their decision to leave the district. Now, the next slide I think is private. Okay, so you can see these are also academic quality and student safety and behavior are also the top two issues for private and charter parents for why they decided to leave. Extremely important to not enroll in a PUSD school. Academics is really at the top for all of these parents. There's a pie chart at the bottom, which is again rather than a ranking, they're asked which one was most important to you. These are private and charter parents, and you can see concerns about academic quality dominate. Now, I don't have a slide for it, but when we asked these parents at private and charter schools, well, why did you go to that school? What drew you to the school you're at? Well, what was it? Academics, safety, responsiveness to parents, small class size. So they were getting there what they were looking for, and they weren't getting at the PUSD school. So, you know, responsiveness is really interesting as a kind of concept, and obviously the district is taking this pretty seriously. There's already been an ombudsman hired. One of the things that I think Mercy's going to lead a discussion on after I'm done shortly is ways to make the district more responsive to you. But you can see you have a lot of these very, very happy parents, and then you have these very unhappy parents who are former parents. How do you keep a problem or a challenge manageable as a district so that your parent doesn't become very unhappy. You've probably all experienced this I know I have as a parent. How can the district change to manage this? I think, by the way, this is one of the assets that this district has, one of many assets, is you're not so big, you're not LA Unified big that it can't turn, it can't make changes like this, it can't be more responsive. But this district is smaller and can do this stuff. At the same time, it's large enough to have assets that come with the variety of options. So this responsiveness is something that I've really been thinking about as I've been looking at the results, and I know that we're going to talk about this later as we go on. So the final section of the results I want to share with you is about the results of when we ask people, well, how important would each of the following be to you in keeping you for middle school at a PUSC school, or for former parents at coming back? So next slide. So one of the things I was really surprised about, in a pleasant way, 32% of former parents said they would consider returning. 1 out of 3, including about 1 out of 10 who said they would definitely think about returning. By the way, that alone solves your enrollment problems, right, for the near term. So there's certainly a lot of hope out of this. But what do they want? What do they want you to do, you meaning the district, to do differently? So next slide. The main point I wanted you to take away is that this chart, which is current parents, and that chart, which is former parents, the numbers are really similar. The order is similar, if not identical. Almost identical. Number 1, give me a basically college-bound, academic-oriented academy of some kind. Honors, AP, college-level classes, help me get admitted to a selective college. Oh, and by the way, it's free here, right? In the public school, and it has the assets that can come with with a larger campus that small charters or privates don't have. This is if you can just move this over just a little bit. So you have 53% of former parents who said they would definitely or probably be encouraged to bring their children back if they could enroll them in a school like this. That does not mean that half of these private and charter school parents are going to do this, but it means that it's a real opportunity if you had some options like this to bring a healthy chunk of these parents back. And 66% of your current parents said it would be definitely important to them in deciding whether to stay or not. Smaller class sizes is second on this list. Obviously, that's a gigantic budget issue that probably goes beyond the ability of our heads to understand what that would take. But number 3, a school with many enrichment opportunities such as the arts, music, and drama. Number 4, a high-achieving gifted magnet school, and down here, a STEAM school, a smaller school for the former parents. So what do parents want? What do parents want to come back? What do parents want to stay? Safety, I think. Of course, we didn't ask that because it's a given, but I don't think we can go through a list like this without being clear about that. I think it's the next slide. So they want to make sure that their children will be safe. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, were you able to drill down at all about what safety meant? Because, I mean, that can mean a lot of different things to different groups of parents. I mean, were you able to get any sort of sense of what parents were talking about?
Yeah, sure. So we asked open-ended questions, and we got many, 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 many responses. And it ranged from really heartbreaking stories of bullying and staff members who were not responsive, to say the least, to kind of general fear about what it's going to be like. I will say that safety was more important to the free and reduced lunch parents than to the gate parents, for example. So you certainly saw that this was not a case of only, for example, affluent parents being worried about other parents, you know, the non-affluent kids. This was really across the board. Safety, responsiveness, these college prep academies, smaller school environments, and a welcoming environment. Now, not all of these things can happen all at once. Maybe some of these are not even possible, but it seems to me that some of these are possible. This is, I think, part of the effort of turning the survey findings into policy. But I'm encouraged when I look at this because it was so consistent across the different parent groups. This is what they're asking for. And you know, to me, when you see that kind of consensus among the public, that's like a signal going off in the air, like fireworks, to policymakers saying, oh, this is what we should do. Yes?
Were there any too loud. Were there any questions regarding parents who actually returned to PUSD to get some variance between their experience at a private or charter once they returned to PUSD?
I don't have that. That would be a really fascinating group. I'm not sure how to find those parents, but if we did, that would be really interesting. Talk to them. You know, why did you come back? Yeah. So, you know, some of this is going to be policy changes. Some of it is going to be communication. Some of it is, you know, sort of responsiveness and listening, and all of it is intent, right? As the district being intentionally open to listening, to responding, and to changing. So I have to say, I think that I looked at these numbers and I thought about it, and I came away feeling pretty optimistic. Look at all the assets this community has in Pasadena. And what parents are asking for is doable. You know, maybe not all of it, like I said, but a lot of it is doable. And what they're saying is that if you can do all of this maybe, or some of this, we'll come back, or we won't leave. And you don't need 100% of these people to come back or not leave in order to meet your enrollment goals. You need a small sliver at first, but you're laying the groundwork to compete effectively with the other schools in this area. And you know, I think that you're going to win this competition gradually, steadily, but I think you're going to be able to compete effectively with them. And to me, that means the future is pretty bright for this district. So I know we had some questions. I'm happy to take additional questions. Mercy, is that okay? Or?
Yes, please.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3. Yes.
Oh, okay. I was just curious, of the 43% that left the district, were you able to drill down and find out how many of those were parents who had originally been in a different district and then had transferred in to PUSD, and how long they might have been here before?
I don't know. It's really challenging. Let me also give credit to the district IT guys who came up with this list, because when we started this almost a year ago, it was like, how could we ever find this list? And they put it together. So, but we don't know where they came from. And we also don't know where they went. We just know that they were with the district and then they weren't. Yes.
Talk about Pasadena's. You talk about Pasadena's assets. Well, there's a lot of poverty in Pasadena,
Yeah.
too. And the people that were able to leave had the money to do it. The ones that are remaining aren't in that position to move to other schools for their kids' sake. So they're stuck. So they're stuck with the poor academics and the poor safety and all that. So what is the district going to do about the people that don't have the options?
Okay, so I'm not the person who can answer for what will the district do, but I think you raise a very important question. You know, there's two issues here. One is bringing back parents who have left, some, although not all of which were affluent, and the other is raising educational standards for the current students and across the board. And I think that's a very important issue that should not get lost in, you know, and I know is not being lost in this master planning process. But so thank you for raising that. Yes.
I don't know if you would answer this, or Mercy, but what do you mean by responsiveness to parents?
Awesome. That's sort of our transition to the next point. But before we get to that, should we take more questions and then do that?
I'm happy to answer
Okay.
the question.
All right.
So the way that came about, responsiveness to parents and really students, it's when an issue comes up, how fast it's responded to, or if it gets responded to at the school site level or the district level. And that included instances involving the student as well as parents. And it could be as simple as I can't get hold of the school office, or it could be more complex, like a student behavior issue, and something that needs to get addressed immediately, and that could turn into more serious issues and create more anxiety for the student or the parent. So responsiveness really comes from your basic customer experience exchange and getting a hold of something or someone, or access to information, to more difficult situations that might involve a child and a student or teacher.
So one of the things we saw in the open ends, numerous examples, is I had a problem, nobody listened. Nobody did anything, right? So that's a terrible problem for a parent, but it's also a fixable problem for a system. You know, you won't, under the best of circumstances, they won't be able to fix every problem, and maybe in some cases there's a conflict that can't be resolved, but this district is small enough and flexible enough, I think, that there should be someone who listens to each problem and responds and tries to solve these problems. So that's what we were getting at, and I know we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Were there any other questions about the results? You, and then in the back. In the back, and then you.
Okay. In regards to the satisfaction between former parents and current parents, the big difference, how much do you think that's attributed to choice supportive bias?
The choice of what?
Supportive bias. I'm going to rate higher my choice.
Yeah, because they left, so I mean they're going to be more negative about the district. And also, I think the point you're making is that if you're a current parent, you have a kind of incentive to be positive about it, and that's certainly true. But it's just the magnitude of the difference is striking. 88% satisfaction with your current school choice. That's, you can massage that and explain it away as whatever you want, but that's very high. And the magnitude of the gap in negative ratings is really big between former and current parents.
Thank you. I don't know which slide it was that had a lot of the 51, 51, 47, 47, but or 57, 57. Can't remember which one it was. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but I have two questions. It seems like that's sort of half the parents are happy, and maybe that's good for a public school system. Can you speak to other experiences you've had, perhaps doing surveys in school systems where sort of the typical parent is happy? Like, is that more like 80 to 90%?
No.
Or
No.
is 57%?
No, remember, let's see if we can go back,
Seems like
Hilda.
half the people in the room are happy and half the people in the room aren't.
Keep going. Back, back, back. Back, 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 back. One more. Okay, so I think this is one. I don't know why only half of the column is here, but. Okay, so you have 57, let's say teachers and principals, 57 satisfied, 16 dissatisfied. So you'll notice that doesn't add up to 100 because you've got parents who couldn't or didn't answer. So you want to look at, because they couldn't, it's not that they were afraid to answer, that they didn't know how to, it was a not sure response. So I look at the ratio here, and the ratio positive to negative is pretty strong. Now, down here, this is facilities. You can see about a third couldn't respond. And I'm not sure, thinking about it myself, how would I respond if someone asked me about facilities at LA Unified? Well, which facilities? So I'm not sure that was a good question in retrospect. But, I think that this is not a case of being a Debbie Downer to note that, not everybody is happy. That's exactly the point. If everyone was happy, no one would ever leave, right? But I just wanted to make the point and make sure that you all understood that many, many parents are pretty satisfied. That's a great place to start from, as opposed to, parents are really unhappy. And you have to start from scratch everywhere. So that's the good news. Yes.
I just want to say that I think both current parents and former parents both are saying the same thing, and hopefully the district is looking and listening, which is educational rigor is important. And so if we are looking at an educational master plan, we are both saying that. And so I think that is key, and that's a key takeaway.
I'm so glad you said that. Both former and current parents, and also the never parents, the ones at privates and charters who weren't here, they're both totally agreeing on what they're looking for and what drew them to their school and what would draw them back here. They're totally in agreement. That's an amazing, finding, and I think really helps shape the direction. There's no dissension in these groups about that.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that.
Thank you. My pleasure.
We'll be working on getting this PowerPoint presentation up online as well so that you can access it and take a look at it. And there's a larger document that's about 60 pages or so that will be a companion document to the Educational Master Plan. I wanted to respond just really briefly to the comment about, though, the kids that are in our district that are English language learners or maybe living in poverty or experiencing hardship. And I'm not going to stand before you and give you a real simple, easy answer, because I think that's a real complex one, and then sometimes it varies school by school and even the communities and the resources that are available for our young people. But I can tell you that there's been significant effort with this Board of Education and the school superintendent to work in developing some consistency around planning, strategic planning, a theory of action for change, looking at ways in which we can be accountable by measurement, and looking at our LCAP dollars and being more transparent with that process, especially as it relates to budget. And there's some models that we're looking at in terms of balanced literacy and tiered levels of support for schools, where we're looking to improve student outcomes and resources for families. That's a basic answer, but it's far more complex, and I think that it's through the Educational Master Plan and the recommendations that you'll feel more satisfied in terms of looking at where the district is now and then where the district needs to go, so that you as a interested community member can also help advocate and support and provide direction and input, because you'll have access to the data and the information too. So I wanted to at least be able to respond to that. So we have 2 questions, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to stay just a little bit longer, because we think that your feedback as we move forward will be really important. And the 2 questions that we wanted to get some feedback from you tonight on is, if PUSD were to make changes in creating more welcoming environments, what improvements should be made that would have the greatest impact? If PUSD, second question, were to make changes around our responsiveness, and that can go in a lot of different ways here, what improvements should be made that would have the greatest impact? So basically, same kind of concept, but these are things that we can have potentially some immediate impact on. And certainly the communications office is working to address some of these issues as it relates to PUSD. So what we would like to do, I will be at this, I'm going to combine tables 1 and 2 and ask that you meet over here, and I'm going to work with your group. And table 5 and this table and your table, if you can come on over here and work with Suzanne. And then table with Jeff and Natasha in the back table. Hi. If you could work with Elizabeth, we're going to facilitate that. And table 3 and 4 will be with Hilda right over here. So if we can just combine you. And take about 10 or so minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, talk about these 2 questions, and then we're going to come back together, do a little bit of share out, see if there's any final questions you have, and then go from there. And sir.
I'm lost with respect to welcoming, which seems to be rather diffuse. And I know how welcoming has been dealt with in terms of, for instance, GLBT students and other kinds of categories. But what does it mean? Is it comprehensively to include everything in the pie, safety, rigorous academic challenges, et cetera, or does it have a particular technical meaning in this dialogue?
Okay, we're going to have to take it from the broadest sense of what welcoming is, and not just in our an office or a classroom with a teacher, also on a website. You know, can you find information you need? Do you feel, is it welcoming? Is it inviting to everyone? Okay, so yes, inclusion would fall into that.
Accessibility, quality, variety, the whole
And in the feedback that we got when we looked at what people were sharing, it went in all of those different directions. And as a district, a school district, we need to be responsive in all of those different areas as it relates to welcoming. So does that help, sir? Mr. Vance?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your conversations.
So on welcoming, we talked a bit about having a better security or appearance of security at the schools to make a better first impression. And that involved some facilities issues like maintenance, appearance, beautification, so that the first impression of the school is really a positive and welcoming one. Some of that also had to do with better signage on campus. Blair is a specific example of there being difficulties with knowing where to go when you approach the school. Also, friendly, polite staff in the office, improved communication about the registration process as a welcoming issue. And then, okay. All right, and then on responsiveness, a top priority would be ensuring the accuracy of information and communications. This also relates to information which is sometimes in conflict between the district and the school, with San Rafael being an example in the past year with what was going to happen with the 5th grade class. We also talked about email and website issues, a recommendation that teachers check their spam filters so that they're receiving emails from parents, and improving accessibility of the websites, which is to some degree making sure that the content and the quality of the websites is consistent across the schools, because some schools, I know that there's been a website revamp recently, but in the past some schools had really great websites and other ones were more difficult to navigate. Don't send information via the kids, and improve the distribution methodology and timeliness of information, particularly really important things about what's going to happen with 5th grade, other really significant issues. Did I miss anything? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, for welcoming, we suggest full-time for front desk and community assistance at both school and district, and particularly have customer service training, especially for front desk people. That seems to be important over there also. But also for administration and teachers. I think there needs to be a big focus on customer service training as far as attitude, enthusiasm, willingness to help. Also, more of a focus on getting parent participation in the schools. And look about having a district-wide sort of policy or template to have some kind of intro or welcoming event at the beginning of the year, starting off the year. So I know some schools have those, others don't, but make that a district-wide type of thing. As far as responsiveness, we have sort of clearly delineated roles and responsibilities and sort of an org chart that everybody knows who is responsible for what information, and so the staff and the parents know who to go to. Did I miss anything? I guess that's about it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, so we talked, for the welcoming concept, there's sort of two phases. One is prospective families, and we talked a lot about the website and how it needs to serve two different types of users, people who are thinking about your school site, and then parents who are already at the school site. And then when you get it up to the district level, that's like times a million, right? You've got all sorts of different people that need to use the website for different purposes. We also talked about for a welcoming environment at the school site, some of our schools, the facilities themselves are not particularly welcoming. San Rafael doesn't have a reception desk. You have to know to go in through here and then through there. And but then, like at Jefferson, you walk in and they have this beautiful foyer that was apparently designed by a hotel architect. I mean, seriously, it's got a lanai and the whole thing. I echo the customer service training. I've always complained that like our principals need to have PR training. Oh, snap. Penn is actually going to be working on that, so good. About tours. We talked about marketing, that historically the district is not particularly strong at marketing ourselves as a product or as a choice, a decision that parents are making. I complained personally about, I feel like as a parent, I have to jump through a lot of hoops to be involved at my school site, that there are systems or procedures that should be in place at all school sites that make it easy for parents to be involved. Because if I'm an involved parent, I'm going to be happier. Those go hand in hand. Like one example was the PTA. Bill shared that one school he works with has a strong PTA. They have back to school event. Another school has no PTA. So they don't have the infrastructure in place that PTAs typically offer. And then in terms of responsiveness, I don't know if anyone has this. I have an iPhone app that the city of Pasadena put together. So if I see a lost dog or a traffic light that's out or a tree, I just enter it into that and I kind of select a category and then it just gets whisked away. And then, I'm assuming behind the scenes it's getting into someone's inbox who then has to respond within 24 hours or 48 hours. Don't make me figure out who I need to talk to at the district. I am not a professional district person, right? Like I just know that my kid doesn't have a textbook and it is week 3 of school. Whatever. I don't, I'm making that up. So don't make me jump through hoops to get involved, and don't make me figure out who I need to talk to get my issues resolved. What else do we need to?
Websites.
We talked about websites. Yeah. We talked a lot about like having one person. Don't make me figure it out. I just know I can go to this person at the school site and they'll help me figure out what I need to get done. Anything else?
Thanks, Emily.
Oh, yeah.
This is on, okay. The good thing about going last is most of the things have been mentioned in one form or another. The topic of making sure that incoming families or new families to a school are welcomed, get some sort of communication from the school about what to expect, not just sometime over the summer, but maybe in the spring, after the enrollment stuff is done. And I realize this is actually a problem for the neighborhood schools that don't necessarily know who all is coming in before, a Marshall knows in May exactly who's going to be there in the fall. And Elliott does not, or some of the neighborhood elementary schools do not. Let's see. We talked about facilities being clean and in good repair, and that's important in how welcoming a place feels and how safe. Consistent protocols for visitors, supervision of students, just sort of the way that the staff interact with each other has an effect on how safe and welcome you feel when you enter a school as a visitor. Consistent communication, particularly from teachers to parents, particularly at the secondary level, harder than at elementary. I feel like people have brought up some of these things. Clear expectations about what's expected of what parents and students can expect of various staff, what is expected of your child, what's expected of parents. And the specifics of that may vary by school, how that happens, and that also needs to be communicated. That's more like part of a school plan. But the expectations are probably a little bit more universal and could be very succinctly and clearly communicated and consistently communicated. And that might help with the responsiveness issue, with making sure that there is a response, that if you call or you have a problem, whether it's putting something into an app or sending an email, that there is some kind of timely response, even if it's just we're working on this and we'll follow up with you in next week or whatever it might be. Is there anything else that hasn't already been mentioned already? I think that's. And just that really needs to come from the leadership. So staff at the school sites need to feel that they're being responded to by the district in order for them to then turn around and be responsive to parents and people who come through the door at the school site. A lot of times staff at a school site might be frustrated, and their frustration kind of is vented when somebody comes in to complain or ask a question. Oh, we can't help you because we're not getting X from the district, or we put in a work order and haven't heard anything, or whatever it might be. And that reflects very badly on the district and also makes the parent feel like I'm not really, happy with the school.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, so I'm honoring your time. Thank you. What you can expect next from the PUSD is we will get the survey PowerPoint on the website. You can take a look at it. I'd like to translate it in Spanish, and when we release something, we like to do English and Spanish at the same time. The other piece is that we're going to take your notes and thoughts and compile them and issue those with the PowerPoint presentation so the rest of the community has a chance to see the conversations that occurred here tonight. Thank you. Have a great evening. Find us on the website. Get a hold of the communication office. We're here to help.